From telling Brazil to F off to LeBron showing off his big balls, NBA players can sometimes get carried away with their in-game celebrations. We all know it's hard to control the hype train, but these NBA superstars take the whole thing to another level with these wild NBA celebrations. From throwing up gang signs to silencing doubters, celebrations are how stars express their emotions in the game. However, like everything in life, it can go too far. While some celebrations seem like a little too much, some are effective and well-timed, but that doesn't mean they're allowed. In this video, we'll examine the reasons for NBA banned celebrations. Number 10. Racially discriminatory celebrations. Racism has always been a sensitive issue in the United States, and in a sport that unites people like basketball, it's only expected to be disallowed. But what if the players didn't even know what they were doing was bad? When a player hits a three-pointer, they tend to throw up the three-finger sign. You'd see LeBron James and several other players do this when they scored from long range. But how could they have known that such an innocent sign was generating hate for them from another country? As it turns out, the gesture is similar to a local gesture in Brazil, which meant F you or F off. So, when the NBA played an international game in Brazil, many Brazilians took offense and let their feelings be known before the NBA finally banned the celebration. Number 9. Paul Pierce's down OK gesture. Paul Pierce moved to Inglewood, California in the 4th grade. For those of you who don't know, Inglewood was gang central at the time. It is generally believed that Paul Pierce has some loose gang ties given where he grew up, but what he didn't expect was that not only was it going to get his celebration banned, but it would also lead to fines. In a Game 3 matchup against Atlanta, the Celtics forward made a three-pointer and celebrated with a gesture interpreted as a gang sign of the Bloods. The league fined Pierce $25,000 for the gesture, which involved holding up his right hand to form an O with the thumb and index finger, while he extended the other three fingers. However, as far as the Celtics coach Danny Ainge was concerned, the three fingers represented blood, sweat, and tears. Number 8. Jimmy Butler's taunt. While most basketball celebrations are done by the player that scored, in Jimmy's case he wasn't even playing. Jimmy was sidelined during the first round of a playoff match against the Atlanta Hawks in Game 5. In the game, Max Strus scored a three-pointer and Jimmy just got too excited. He whipped out a gesture that the NBA termed an obscene gesture and was fined $15,000. You could call it X-rated. When asked about it, he blamed his head coach who had encouraged the players to celebrate each other's accomplishments. Come on, Jimmy, no one's buying that. Apparently, the team also celebrated each other's fines, as the Heat team was also fined $15,000 for posting it online. Number 7. LeBron James's big balls gesture. We all know LeBron has a big physique, but he still wasn't interested in leaving the size of his package to the imagination. Generally speaking, LeBron was just in a no-discipline mode that week, as he had been slapped with a career-first suspension for hitting an opponent in the face. Then he returned to action against the Indiana Pacers, but just could not stay away from controversy. After getting 2 fans removed from the Bainbridge Fieldhouse, he scored a clutch three-pointer and did the infamous big balls dance. After that, the NBA slapped him with a $15,000 fine for making the obscene gesture. Interestingly, James's fine marked the second time an NBA player had been punished for performing the banned celebration within weeks. Before James, Fred VanVleet had been fined $15,000 for the same after scoring a game-winning shot over the Philadelphia 76ers. Number 6. Dwayne Wade's throat-slash gesture. If an obscene gesture is not allowed in the NBA, then a celebration that expresses a murder is definitely not going to stand. And maybe Wade should have known better. It all happened in 2016 when the Chicago Bulls played against the Celtics. Wade went in for the kill, hitting a step-back three with just over 26 seconds to go in regulation, giving his team a 104-99 advantage. For his celebration, he showed the fans what he had done. He'd killed the Celtics. But the NBA was not having it. He was fined $25,000 and forced to issue an apology to young fans, which he did on Twitter saying, "I was caught up in the emotions of my first game at home." Well, D-Wade was probably just hyped up, which apparently costs $25,000 these days. Number 5. Vince Carter's earbud ban. Who else remembers listening to music on their iPods? Yes, it was all the rage around the early 2000s, And who can blame NBA players and everyone else for enjoying their favorite songs on the device? Most NBA stars love to fill their ears up with hip-hop sounds, and Vince Carter was no different. Vince loved to plug in headphones and feel the vibes from the boxy portable stereo. It was like his own pregame ritual. However, his pregame ritual was getting on the nerves of a certain entity. Why? What was the problem? Well, Brian McIntyre, the NBA spokesman at the time, explained with these illuminating words. We informed them that he can no longer do it. Vince had to suffer because the league's management detested music blasting through headphones. So that was how Carter, and by extension all NBA players, were prohibited from having any sort of pregame ritual that involved music and earbuds. Number 4. Caron Butler's straw chewing. While most NBA stars had a very understandable attraction to iPods, Caron Butler's attraction was to straws. Caron's an NBA champion and 2-time All-Star, not to mention an adult, so he knows what's good for him. I mean, before basketball changed his life, Caron had been arrested 15 times before turning 15, so he definitely knows a thing or two about what's bad. Still, in 2010, the NBA noticed Butler was always hucking straws on the sidelines. They forbade him from chewing them. Tim Frank, the NBA's senior vice president for basketball communications, declared it a safety problem. But Butler is no stranger to danger. At the age of 11, Butler was a drug dealer in Racine, Wisconsin. But he couldn't have his straws while on the bench because the NBA cared about his safety. This is touching because we'd all feel bad if anything bad happened. Number 3. Dwight Howard's tongue out celebration. While Caron Butler chewed his straws with his mouth, another decided to use his mouth to create an obscene celebration. Creativity at its peak, right? Dwight went with an obscene celebration. I mean the celebration where he shows everyone in the arena that he's a freak. It was a game between the Hornets and the Cavaliers, and when the Hornets had a fast break, Dwight Howard came through and slammed it home. That tied the game at 46 apiece, and Dwight was certainly feeling himself. The next thing we know, he placed 2 fingers apart beside his lips and had his tongue out. Ladies, look out! But you can imagine the NBA didn't like the suggestive material he was dishing out to fans about his freaky side. And they did their own slamming. Howard was hit with a $35,000 fine, which was the last of it. Number 2. Kyrie Irving combines profanity and the obscene. The bad blood that has existed since Kyrie left the Boston Celtics is no mystery to anyone. So when the Brooklyn Nets came up against the Celtics, it was a rivalry between Kyrie and the fans. Celtics fans clowned him all night and even followed him to the locker room, where he cursed at them and earned a fine worth $25,000. However, in the game, he hit a huge three-pointer and flipped off the fans, not once but twice, each worth $15,000. That wasn't enough for him. In his post-game conference, he recounted the jeers he got from the Celtics fans and ended his comments with an F that, racking up another $15,000 fine. By the end of the press conference, Kyrie's total fines from the loss against the Celtics were $70,000 based on precedent. However, it's not surprising that the league's management only fined Irving $50,000. Well, once again, the NBA offers what can only be called a multi-violation discount. And since Irving was able to save $20,000 in fines, there's no doubt that he didn't regret his actions. Number 1. John Wall throws up gang signs. Now, while other players here didn't have their careers ruined because of a celebration, John's case was different. During his time with the Wizards, he was a brutal and dominating guard that seemed destined for the very top of success in the league. However, he also gained some fame for a trademark celebration that no one could identify. Since no one could identify it, no one cared. Or did they? Later, Wall got injured and wasn't available for 2 whole years. While you would have expected him to be focused fully on his recovery, the star player was caught partying with his friends for his birthday in New York. Liquor, girls, friends, and a camera were a bad combination for him, as he was seen with numerous blood gang members throwing up his trademark celebration. People could see that his celebration was actually a gang sign, and he was gang affiliated. The penalties came in fast. First, he was forced to issue an apology, and later traded to the Rockets, and he hasn't been the same since.